Okay, guys. So today's Zoom is going to be titled "The Big Squeeze" because when you come into Mary Kay, or you're a mom, you're a wife, you have a job, some part-time jobs, some have full-time jobs, some volunteer. You just have to figure out where to squeeze your business in, and so I'm going to kind of read my notes because I jotted down a lot of things because when I first started Mary Kay, I had a full-time job and two babies. And so I'm very active in our church. And it was, sitting down with Andy and saying, okay, when am I going to work my business? Because my job was very demanding. I was exhausted. You guys have heard my story before. And we literally, we had to put it in the calendar. We had to put it down. And, just like you get up and you go to work, you list the things. What do I have to do? What do I have to do? If you have a full-time job, you have to go to your full-time job, and you have to take care of your kids. You want to go to church, and so you put all those things into your calendar, and then you look at what's available, and then you can put your business in there, and believe it or not, it actually works. And so today, Wanda and I were interviewing one of her prospects, and the girl, of course, typical. I don't know if I've got time. I've got to look at my schedule, and I want you to ask yourself this question, because this is the question I asked her. I said, "Well, if you had to go and get another part-time job, and the HR person asked you, how many hours can you work this part-time job?" And she said, "Oh, I could do it 30 hours." And I looked at her and I said, "I don't usually work this business 30 hours a week. And I'm, a future executive sales director. I've been in 22 years. I have a lot of customers. And so that's full time in Mary Kay." And so most of us come in with just a couple of hours a week spare time. And if we can plug that in and figure out where to plug it in and be consistent and create that habit, and then figure out all of our distractions, um, we can make that work, and we can have that whole compounding penny effect on our business by growing our customer base, by the faces that we do. um, and when I came in, I focused on 30 faces every 30 days. I couldn't run with every contest that was being dealt out. I just had to focus on one thing, just like a racehorse. Um, some of them wear blinders for a reason. If they're so fast and they're running beside a slower horse, if they don't have their blinders on, they'll just go with the pace of the slower horse. And so if you just put your blinders on and you say, I'm going to work this business on Tuesday night, which is what I did. We looked at our schedule, and Tuesday night was going to be the night that I was going to work my business. And I just put my blinders on, and yes, I wanted more. Yes, but I did that. How do you eat your elephant? One bite at a time. And, I would have loved to eat, gulp my elephant down, but that was never going to be an option, because I had to get my business going and build that customer base, and to be able to leave my full-time job. And so it was like just putting one foot in front of the other. And so me focusing on 30 faces every 30 days might surprise you that I didn't hit that until the month that I became a sales director. And so that was, let's see, I started my business January 8th of 2001. And I became a sales director July 1 of 2002. So almost a year and a half later, that June, yeah, it was a year and a half later, that June of 2002, I finally hit my goal of 30 faces in 30 days. And so so a year and a half, I kept same goal every month. I'm going to do 30 faces, 30 new faces, 30 new faces. Sometimes I would do 15, sometimes I would do 20, even got to 29. Then I would do it. it wasn't about the 30. It wasn't about hitting the goal. It was about the attempt, the activity that went in, and it was that compounding penny. Compounding penny. I was compounding faces, compounding customers, new team members were coming. And so I was failing at hitting this 30 faces, but in the end, I was winning because I was chiseling away at that goal of whatever that goal was, to be home. Okay. Building that large customer base that gave me that guaranteed reorder business every month, that gave me, I figured out with the consistency, I learned the skill of booking, and I learned the skill of customer service, and just building all of those things solid in my time. Okay. Running my own race it is the story of the tortoise and the hare. Okay. You've got players that come into Mary Kay, and I call them firecrackers. And and it's not a good thing because they make a loud boom and then there's nothing else from them, right? And then you want to be a sparkler. Sparklers last longer, right? And so, you don't want to be that person that comes in, makes a loud noise, and then all of a sudden, because they choke on their elephant, they get discouraged. And so when you're just, you know, doing what you can when you can until you can do more, this is how this business grows a very solid, strong business, customer base, team members, uh, everything comes from, just mastering every aspect of this business, and not trying to swing for the fence every time. You know, if in a baseball term, go up there and hit some singles. If you're using a football term, don't try to throw a Hail Mary every time. Sometimes you're just moving the chain for the first down. Just do what you can do, but do something, because there's so many people that, that come in throwing those Hail Marys. They miss the ball and they quit. They walk off the field. And if you come in and you're just moving that chain, getting those first downs, eventually you're going to get in the end zone. Okay. I'm just a sports person. You guys know that. So I have to use all those analogies. So let me go back to my notes, because I had some very important notes. So Andy and I looked at our calendar, because, of course, why did he have to get involved? We had a 6-month-old baby and a 2-year-old. And so he would work all day. And my husband needs to know when he's got to do something. That was I think we've talked about this before. That was our biggest, like, was he would come in. I'm like, oh, my party on Tuesday canceled. I need to work on Thursday. And I didn't warn him, because things like that happen. I wish I could tell you that every Tuesday it was, you know, it was perfect. It wasn't. Sometimes if they did cancel and they say, well, can you come on a Thursday? Well, that's fine. It'd be the next Thursday, but I still had my next Tuesday appointment. And Andy was flexible as long as I had it on the board. And that's where my board started. So we always worked out the calendar together. And I know that Marianne and Chris do the same thing. And you guys, we all have the same 24 hours in a day. Some of us do a lot more with our 24 than others. And what I saw a training one time, it was Pam Shaw, and she said, if you find that you're that person that gets distracted, or you're running in place and you're not going anywhere, you're almost like actually spinning in place. You got one foot down and you're just spinning. I know people like that. We have people in our unit like that. They don't get on Sunday night because they forget. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Anyway, we all have the same 24 hours. You have to look at where you're putting your time. You guys have heard me say for 8 years, I did not watch TV. Okay. I would turn the TV on at 10 o'clock at night, after I'd gotten my babies in the bed, after Andy and I, we had our time together, I'd watch Fox News for 30 minutes. As I got my business established, Andy and I would spend Wednesday night, would be our movie night. We'd have ice cream or popcorn because we had to spend that time together. And so we scheduled everything because it was very important that we built this business. Even though it was like one night a week, that's what we were doing. And so we all have that, same 24 hours. And going back to your faces, tracking your faces, even if your goal, even if 30 faces in 30 days overwhelms you, even if I just sat here and told you it took me a year and a half to hit it, if that overwhelms you, knock it down to 15. Okay. You are going to be chiseling away at that goal that you want just by doing something. Okay. It's that I'm going to tell you about a compounding penny in just a second and what it does. And it's a financial, it's what the financial world uses to help people understand the value of saving. Okay. And doing something, saving something. You can use that same analogy in your building your customer base and building your team. All right. So let me go back to my notes. So I just mentioned that I didn't watch TV because that was a distraction. We didn't have social media. So if you're finding that you're spending 3 hours a day combined on social media, you guys, that's a skincare class. That's a facial. That's booking. If you're not where you want to be, you're going to have to give up something. It's called sacrifice. I don't know that anybody loves social media as much as I loved softball. I played softball for 25 years. And when I started my business, and then Ryan started 3.5 T-ball, I was out of nights because I wanted to be a sales director. I wanted to be a sales director more than I wanted to play softball, believe it or not. But I didn't want to miss any of my son's games. None of that was more important than watching Ryan. Watching Ryan and not missing any of his baseball games was number one. And so those are the things, like I gave up softball. And so you've got to look at what you're doing when you're looking at your schedule. If you said, I want this, then there's something in your heart that God has placed, that a desire, that you want that. So you've got to do whatever you can do to cross that finish line and see, why did God place that desire in your heart? Because, if God, leads you to it, he will lead you through it, or through it to it. I actually have this on a picture in my bedroom. I'll take it. It says, if God brings you to it, he'll lead you through it. And so why do you have this desire, and what are you going to do? What do you have to sacrifice and give up to get yourself in a position that you can reach this goal, or complete this desire? And in our business, a lot of times, you guys, maybe you've never accomplished anything big. Maybe you've never finished something. Maybe this is your time to do that for yourself, because as moms, we give and we give and we give, and we're like, I want to do this for me. And I started taking tennis lessons again recently, because I said, what, I want to do this for me. So that's squeezing that in. I feel guilty at first, but you know what? That's just part of mommy guilt. And that was another thing. Let's talk about that. When you are being present to the moment, if you're saying, I'm working my Mary Kay business, then you work your Mary Kay business. If you're supposed to be with your family, you be with your family. If this is your church time, you be at church. And so you won't have those guilt factors if you practice that present to the moment. I used to always tell you guys, when I finally get my beach house or my lake house, the name of my beach house is going to be present to the moment, because that is a rule that I follow. No distractions. So figure out, what are your distractions. Mary Kay was always famous for, if it's not getting you closer to your God, your family, or your goal, you shouldn't be doing it. And I took that to heart. That's why I cut out TV. That's why I stopped softball. You know, I still had that competitive spirit. And so I found my tennis team in the mornings and then I eventually had to let that go years ago. So I was like 34 and I found a tennis team because I was still hungry for that athleticism and that competitiveness that I got from my softball team. And I found that tennis was in the morning and I had more free time in the morning than I had at night. And so sometimes giving up one thing doesn't mean that you have to give it up forever. Maybe it's going to look like something else. So, like for me, giving up softball at night, because, for my children and for my business, for the sake of my business, I found that I could pick up tennis. And you know what? Because of that, God has used that love for tennis to open up so many doors at our school now because I coach. I started the tennis program at school. I started the middle school team 3 years ago, started the varsity team this year. I get to minister to so many kids. It's not about tennis. I get and I see how God used that. And so what you have to give up, if it's something that you truly love, then God will find another way to fill that void. Okay. If you feel a calling to do something with this business, okay? Because I think we all come in for different reasons, but we stay for so much more. We stay for so much more. And there's a Michigan, here goes my football scenarios again. So my husband's a University of Michigan fan. And when they come out of their locker room and they're about to go onto the field, there's a big sign that they hit every time. And it says, for those that stay, will be champions. You'll be champions. And so I've always felt like that in the Mary Kay world. You gain so much more by doing even little in this business and just staying. You stay, God blesses you in so many ways. You might meet your best friend. You might meet, there's just so many things that the sisterhood, the confidence. I would have never had the confidence to start a tennis team. Like, you guys, it's just unfolding. Your story is never over until, the day they put you in the ground. You can keep learning, keep living, keep giving, keep loving. And just being in this business, God keeps bringing people to you. And when you go to an appointment and it's not a home run, and sometimes you just got to say, God, I know that I planted some kind of seed. I may not ever see what that seed grows into, but I'm going to trust you. I'm going to trust you that I was there around that kitchen table for a reason. And if you take that attitude, you will never leave an appointment disappointed, ever. And I can promise you that. I've had more no's, more no sale appointments than any of you. And you just have that attitude of next. Okay, next. I was there for a reason because God doesn't make mistakes. Okay. All right. So let's talk about, let's talk about what a compounding penny is. So a compounding penny, hold on for a second. So a compounding penny, so let me ask you this question. If I said, I'll give you $1 million right now, or I'll give you a penny today, and in 30 days, every day for 30 days, I'm going to double it. Would you take the million or would you take the penny? I bet most of you will say, I want the million. If you said, I'll take the penny, then you're right. But if you said, I'll take the million, you would have shortchanged yourself by $4 million in 30 days because it's the compounding penny. It keeps doubling and doubling and doubling. So that's the value of saving a little young, right? The value, something that's lost on the youth is time, right? And you save a little bit, like my boys, I've taught them from the compounding penny when they started getting, paid in the military, they started saving money. And like Riley, he's out of the Navy now, but he's got this chunk of money that he's been saving. And Andy figured it out. He said, Riley, if you don't touch this and you keep it where it is and you don't touch it, you're with the same percentage, you're going to have $125,000 in 30 years. Okay. But if you move it to this account that has this kind of return, you're going to have 425,000. That's never touching it. And that's the value of a compounding penny. And so think of your business as the compounding penny. I did 2 faces this week. I did 3 faces this week. And just over a year, over 2 years, over 5 years, just look where it ends up. Just eating that elephant one bite at a time. You can squeeze that in to your busy life. You can squeeze it into your busy life. And that's when, you'll make it in the big scheme of things. You would have done great things, and you'll be like me one day. You'll look back and go, oh my gosh, I am successful, because you're in the rat race and you're building and building, and you're just doing it, and then you're like, somebody says something, you're like, oh, I literally, I think I'd earned 5 cars, and at that point I would have had earned 2 pink Cadillacs. I think I have to add it up, and I still had not even thought the thought, because I had my blinders on, and I was just doing my 15 to 20 hours, 15 to 20 hours, 15 to 20 hours, what would fit in my schedule with my family, sacrificing not my family, not my God, but sacrificing the things that didn't get me closer to my God, my family, or my goal. And that's how I squeezed everything in to my busy life. And I'm busier now with 3 kids than I was with 5 kids. So it's skill. It's learning how to habit stacking. We talked about that. I'll talk about that really quickly, and then I'm going to let Marianne talk, because Marianne has 5 kids too. So habit stacking, and I've mentioned this before. I don't know if it was recorded, but let's say when my boys left, I'll tell you, when my boys left for the Navy in May of 2019, I wanted to get in shape. I wanted to have something, to focus on. My boys, it was hard having my boys in the Navy and worrying, and you guys know, your moms. I couldn't even do 1 push-up. I had felt like I'd lost all my upper body strength. I'd not played any sports, and I could only do 1 push-up. And so every day I worked on that 1 push-up, and that 1 push-up turned to 3 push-ups. And now I can do 25 push-ups. And now I've started doing squats. And now I do squats started with 10 squats. Now I'm up to 30 squats at the same time after I do my push-ups. Okay. When do I find time to do that? When I'm doing my makeup, after I put my foundation on and it's wet, and I'm just sitting there looking at myself, waiting for it to dry. Duh, I'm wasting time. I don't waste a single minute. I go do my push-ups, I go do my squats, and I'm done for the day. Just like when I get ready in the morning, I get up at 5:30, I do the smoothies, I make the lunches, I start my dinner. Everything is done by 7 o'clock, and my makeup is on. It's habit stacking. And so you aren't where you want to be because you have bad habits. And you need to figure out what triggers those bad habits and form new triggers. Okay. I've been trying to teach this to my sister, who's a smoker. I said, there's a trigger that makes you want a cigarette. You got to figure out what that trigger is and stop doing it. Okay. And you replace that trigger with a good trigger, and then you replace the bad habit with a good habit. All right, Marianne, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Awesome. A couple of quick things as we go, just coming through all those. I love, Michelle, how you, in the beginning, you sacrificed TV for 8 years, then you scheduled that little date night time, and now you're freed up where you can do tennis in the morning with your team. And so I love that you were just obedient to the next step. And that's always what God is working with me. It's just be obedient to the next step. And I had more to say with that, but I forgot. It's okay. And we learn best by failing. And so I want to, and like Michelle's story, just remind you that the best thing we can do is try and mess up. Try and mess up and learn. And so I listen to the Mental Performance Daily podcast, and I love it so much. I've created a habit with that one. It's only 3 minutes long. I love that it's short, concise. I would say he coaches a lot like Michelle does, and a lot of meat and potatoes, precise and to the point. And so he talks about there's winners and there's lessons, and so if you always see that, like, I won and or I learned a lesson, and teaching that to your other family is really important. And then talking about the seeds always unfolding, I went to my husband's reunion, and it was so amazing. There was someone who came up to me. I was on the dance floor, looking like Barbie and hanging out with some fun friends. And this girl, she was very tiny framed. She had some dreads. She had on like an army jacket type thing. They had it was a casual thing. I was kind of bummed, but anyway. And so if you can imagine her coming to talk to me in the middle of this crowd, and she said, I remembered you from a skincare class. And I remembered her face, and thankfully she had her name tag. And I was like, I so like I was at my husband's reunion making besties with all of people from his school. And so come to find out later, everybody was telling Chris, you did such an amazing job with this. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And she said to him, she said, being around, I felt really weird. And she also was a former drug addict. Like, hand was gone. Okay. Can you imagine how she feels? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And she said, this was so healing. And she and I talked, and like, it was such an amazing moment. And I was like, how cool was that because of my skincare class back then, that I think she bought an eyeliner years ago. She was able to connect with me and see there. And we had that moment. So you never know what God's going to do. So I just had to share that. Finding those distractors, sometimes a technique that I've used occasionally when I find that I'm getting way off distracted, I will do a time study where every 15 minutes, or you can do 30 minutes, you set a timer and you just write down, you have a schedule, you do it. And then you write down whatever you did, good or bad. And so it helps you to course correct fast, because it's accountability for yourself. And that will help you get back on track if you really, really struggle with that. And my sister told me one time, she said, oh, Michelle, you were talking about distractors like social media, games. Like, I don't have any of those on my phone. And I use my social media for my business, and I do have a time limit on it. There's an hour time limit on my social media. And there are sometimes where I recognize that I'm just scrolling. And then again, the time study helps me get back, or I'll even move my app to the other side so I can't see it. So that's how I help myself with boundaries. But my sister tells me, she's like, show me where you spend your time and your money, and I'll show you where your values are. And I'm always like, okay, let's course correct. And because that's so important. And what God really has on my heart is, we are here for a purpose. Like, every day is valuable, and it's so important that, that's what the enemy does, is he wants to distract us. Like, I'm not going to go out and rob a bank, but if Satan can have me ineffective and off purpose and miss somebody, he's won. And so that's where, when things, I try to just, as much as possible, be on purpose, on purpose, on purpose. I heard from Lisa Madsen in a director training, if it doesn't bring me closer to God, my family, or my goal, I don't do it. She said, have you ever booked your toilet? So getting to the place where you can hire a house cleaner will free up your time to get you. Got to work on that myself, in process right there. But I just want to help you think that way. And then reading the book, if you guys, a lot of it's what Michelle has talked about. I'm in the process of reading The Greatest Salesman again. Get the book, The Greatest Salesman in the World. I know we've said it before, but if you haven't done it yet, if you haven't read it yet, if you've already read it, read it again. The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino, Ogmandino. And doing those habit stacking. With that one, you have to read the scroll every day for 30 days, 3 times a day. And so I figured, okay, I don't want to get bored with this. What can I do? It takes me 10 minutes to read the first one. I started working out. I started doing wall sits while I'm reading, or doing like planks while I was reading. you know, and so that way I could get some more movement in. That's 3 times a day more movement than I was doing before. So love that habit stacking. And all of this is, we read, we feel my walking time is a podcast, you know. It's very, I listen to worship music, but other than that, like, not as much. But I know we're all wired different for music and things like that. So just think, where can I fill my time and my space with good stuff and do all the things. So that's my 5 cents.
Awesome, Marianne. So yeah, so I've read Og Mandina's book, The World's Greatest Salesman, 3 times. You guys, you got to finish it. Don't just pick it up and lay it down, because if you don't go and read all the way through to that very last page, you totally don't get what it's all about. Like, I promise you, when you read to the end, you will be squalling. Like, and if you're not, then you didn't read, you skip pages. Like, right, Marianne, don't you agree? Okay, that's all we're gonna say.
Oh, in addition to habit stacking and reading, I know this is recorded, so I'll do my best. I was not great at reading. It used to take me forever to read books because it wasn't a habit. And so I realized, I watched my husband, he would go to the bathroom and just be gone for 20 minutes. And I'm like, what the heck? And, you know, us moms, we're like, go as fast as we can. And so I said, know what? I deserve to be by myself for no dang reason as well. So I decided I would read my 10 pages while I went to the bathroom, you know.
Good for you.
And now, albeit sitting on the toilet too long is actually not healthy for you. So even if it's just 5 minutes, really, you should be going pretty fast if your systems are good. Okay. So even if I'm done, I will finish reading those 4 or 5 pages. And so then that way, every day I'm getting in more pages and I'm using my time wisely. Just saying. There you go.
Awesome. All right. I think I'm gonna try that, because I'm having a hard time finding time to read too. So, and I love
Yeah.
to
So
read.
I leave the book right there.
Yeah,
And
I
so
got 2 books I'm in the middle of. Like, how
Yeah.
did that happen? I don't usually do that. So, all right, guys. We hope this was successful, and the big squeeze was the title for this. It's recorded. It'll be posted, and you guys just, you know what, eat your elephant one bite at a time. That's all you gotta
Thank
do.
y'all for being
All right.
here.
Yay! Good night.
Good night.
Night.
Good night.